welcome everyone to another roundtable hosted by Morningstar Ventures. So in the past couple of weeks, I guess we can all agree that the market has been a little bit confusing, but there still feels like there's a lot of good sentiment and also a lot of hope that is going strong. But now, as we kick off the next quarter, we were thinking, what better topic to talk about other than Bitcoin? So for that reason, joining us today are three projects that are all building in the Bitcoin ecosystem and are here to talk to us about their view on Bitcoin dominance in 2025 and also what their take is on the overall crypto space. So joining us are Jeroen from Persistence, Chandra from Portal to Bitcoin, and Jake from Nexio. Now, before we get started, just quickly, I'm your host, Naini. I'm in the content team at Morningstar Ventures. And for all of you that are tuning in, we would love to hear your questions for our three guests. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to either write them in the comments section, or you can also ask your question live at the end of this roundtable. Now, lastly, a quick reminder that this roundtable is recorded and will be going live on Spotify and also Apple Podcast later next week. So without further ado, I say we get started with a round of introductions. And Jeroen, because you were dialed in first, I'm also going to pick on you first. Could you please introduce yourself and also share a little bit more about what you're doing in the crypto space?
Absolutely. What an honor. First of all, thanks for hosting and thanks for having us. Excited for this space today. So hey everyone, my name is Jeroen. I'm the COO of Persistence One. With Persistence, we're actually building a BTC file liquidity hub. The Persistence liquidity hub kind of consists of two different things. One is a DEX, more of a traditional DEX, but kind of focused on trading assets that are BTC related, and that is happening on the Persistence chain. So there's a chain, but it will soon also expand to Babylon chain, the chain that most people will probably have heard of if you are looking at the Bitcoin ecosystem at all. So we'll be deploying our DEX on the Babylon chain as well. And then second product or the second vertical is actually an intent-based bridge focused on swapping different variants of Bitcoin across different L2s. So to give a little bit more context, there's a lot of Bitcoin layer 2s or side chains that have popped up. There's a lot of different versions of BTC that started to emerge and started to grow in popularity, and we're kind of making it easy to swap between those different versions across different chains. So it's a cross-chain swap product specifically for Bitcoin. So that's in a nutshell what we do. And I hope that that makes sense.
Great. And how did you get into crypto?
I got into crypto through an ex-colleague of mine. I used to work as a consultant in financial services when I graduated over 10 years ago. Then at some point kind of reconnected with him. He was a founder of this project and ventured into crypto 2021. Been in the space for a while. I've always been in kind of tech and finance before, so it kind of made sense to me that crypto, which is a combination of tech and finance in a way. So it made sense for me to move into crypto, and I was always passionate about it. Like, been trading a little bit obviously before 2021, but joined as a real builder in 2021.
Great. Nice to have you here. And Jake, we're going to go with you next. Could you give us a quick introduction of who you are and what you're doing in the crypto space, and also how you came into it?
Awesome. So I'm Jake. I'm one of the co-founders of Nexio. We're building a parallelized Bitcoin rollup using the Move VM. So developers are going to be able to build applications that have much higher throughput than anything you'd be able to experience on Bitcoin. It will also have much cheaper transactions. In terms of actually how I got into the crypto space, me and my brother Charlie, who's also my co-founder, we started mining Ethereum in 2017 with our dad, because at the time we thought it was a little too late to mine Bitcoin. But I mean, what did we know then? And then fast forward to 2 Februaries ago at this point, we saw ordinals and became very intrigued because at the end of the day, Bitcoin miners rely on inflationary rewards. And at the time, they weren't really doing that well. And ordinals kind of brought them out of this down period and brought an increase in revenue to them. So we became very interested in it and dove right in.
Very cool. So let me get this right. You, your dad, and your brother, you guys all started out in crypto together, mining.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
We would discuss Bitcoin a lot, and knew a couple people who mined Bitcoin. But at the time in 2017, the price was increasing a lot. It wasn't before the price fell, and we thought it was too late. So, but then we saw ETH and became very interested. So we bought our first machine and went with it.
Very cool. Love that it was a family thing that started it. And Chandra, I see that you've also dialed in now. Welcome. Could you please also give us a quick introduction of who you are, how you got into crypto, and what it is that you're doing now?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me, first of all. Great to be here. My name is Chandra. I'm the founder of Tides, which is the core developer of the Portal project. I got into, my background is a serial entrepreneur in Silicon Valley for 15 years. Done 3 startups, a couple failed, a couple succeeded. After my last exit, I was sitting and looking around for something to do. This was back in 2017. I first got into Bitcoin in 2011, mined some, lost some. The usual story of people who actually loved Bitcoin but didn't believe it was going to go anywhere because all of the governments were going to kill it. Didn't think I was ever going to do anything related to business or entrepreneurship in Bitcoin. And back in 2018, we kind of played around with these Ethereum and other L1s that were coming out. And said, we can develop some great software. Same team that I worked with in the past on a few companies. And we looked around for real problems to solve in this space and not to chase narratives. And we said, right from the day the second chain or a fork of Bitcoin appeared, the biggest problem in this space remained custody. Custodial risk, counterparty risk, however you want to call it, right? From Mt. Gox to FTX to recent third chain problems to bridge collapses to Ronin wormhole. Whatever the issues are, depeggings, all of it is rooted in one singular risk, which is custodial risk or counterparty risk. So how do you eliminate that across multiple chains, cross-chain transactions? And that's the mission behind starting Portal. And what Portal does is it's the only trust-minimized cross-chain infrastructure that works natively with Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and many other chains soon, with the performance of a centralized exchange, meaning the speed, the user experience, and low transaction fees with absolutely no custodial risk. There is no multi-sig, no bridge, no validator custody. There are no vaults, and there are no wrap derivatives. And that's what we do.
Great. Thanks, guys, for all of your introductions. It's been great to hear a little bit of a high level of what you are all building. So I say we dive right into the topic of today, which is obviously about BTC in 2025. And I want to go into a bit of a broader topic. So now that, institutions that they've all entered the market after the ETF approvals that we had last year, excuse me, how would you actually describe Bitcoin's dominance today? And whoever wants to go first, please go ahead.
I can go first.
Yeah, go ahead, Chandra.
Okay. So when you're talking about dominance, I'm assuming you are talking about the market cap, like the percentage of market cap of crypto by layer 1. In that sense, we absolutely have turned a corner. There were predictions until last year that all crypto cycles are the same, 6 months post-halving. money goes into Bitcoin, and then it rotates into alts, and then into ever higher risk end of the curve. Turns out the structure of this cycle is absolutely not the same as the last few cycles. A couple of things happen, right? Like you rightly pointed out. ETFs pulled forward demand into last year and ongoing into this year, right? Which essentially means that Bitcoin is much more tightly tied to macro now. And you can see the correlation between S&P 500, NASDAQ, and Bitcoin. You know, you don't need to be super sophisticated to know this. Anyone can see this. Is that money rotating into alts? I don't think so. Because, you know, traditionally, the money that came into Bitcoin came from people through centralized exchanges, through off-chain channels, bridges, fiat bridges, etc. And then it rotated into alts and then, you know, meme coins, etc., etc. The money that's coming in now from institutions, wealth managers, etc., doesn't follow the same flow because think of it from the perspective of the capital allocator, right? Like if it's a wealth manager that is deploying into a Bitcoin ETF by BlackRock, that's not going into, you know, a meme coin. That's not going into the latest L1 or L2. So Bitcoin dominance will continue to grow, and Bitcoin to altcoin separation will continue to be wider and wider. And Bitcoin is continuing to be more deeply tied in with macro. That's my take.
Mm-hmm. Jake, Jeroen, do you guys agree? Do you have a different take?
Yeah, I kind of agree to a lot of these things. I agree with the fact that I also think BTC dominance is going to keep increasing. I've actually been saying this for a while. I had a bit of a different opinion actually a while back, and when I started in crypto, I started mostly on the Cosmos side, where there was this thesis of like it's a multi-chain world and there will be hundreds and thousands and millions of chains eventually, and so many assets that people will use, and everything will be specific app chains and everything. And sure, that will be true for a lot, but I also realized that the demand for having like one specific asset, one chain, is there, you know, and in terms of being able to generate demand and usage for all of these different assets and chains that we see, it's not that straightforward. And Bitcoin actually has that community. They have that like amount of eyes and attention on it already, right? On Bitcoin itself. And it has recently, over the last, I would say 18 to 24 months, even increased because of the tech capabilities that are now also been added to Bitcoin as a chain, right? Like before, Bitcoin was seen as just an asset that you could hold. It's like this digital gold store of value type of thing, and that was one of the only use cases. Obviously, it was seen as a use case for payments before, but it's not really been used as a payment method, obviously. But with all these like Bitcoin L2s, all the projects that are now actually building on top of Bitcoin, because of the recent upgrades that have happened, like, for example, Taproot, upgrade and things like that. There's just more and more possible on Bitcoin, and we don't need all these other chains anymore in a way. Also because it's just a lot harder to get attention for all these other chains. So I think in a way, I do kind of expect that dominance of BTC will continue to grow, not only because of all the points that were highlighted by Chandra, was it right? But also just because there's just a lot more tech now that is available on the Bitcoin network, which will continue to kind of steal away from all these alternative L2s and all these alternative chains that are there. So to me, it's like a combination between the tech that makes it possible and already the move that's happening because of the ETFs and the accessibility of the asset. So yeah, kind of aligned, but with some additional kind of reasons behind the alignment.
Great. Yeah. It's good to bring in that tech element as well, because there has been a lot of growth in that sector. Jake, anything you would like to add about this? I'm not sure if you're on mute or you don't want to add anything. Oh, Jake seems to have dropped off. I guess maybe his connection is not so strong. But let's move on to the next question then, and then Jake can always chime in when he's back in. But in terms of this dominance and everything that's been happening within the BTC ecosystem, for you, Jeroen and Chandra, has there been anything that's seriously surprised you guys in the last year regarding Bitcoin? I mean, anything from tech to ideology to use cases to market momentum. Chandra, I already saw you go off mute. Go ahead.
Anything that surprised me? Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, obviously, ordinals, when it first came out, we thought it was a joke, right? And BRC20s, we thought we were pretty sure were a joke. And we didn't pay attention to it. Obviously, we were wrong. And runes is obviously an improvement over that. That's a surprise. The Bitcoin L2 hype did not really surprise us because we were really in the middle of it, and about 80% of all of the Bitcoin L2s wanted to integrate our infrastructure for having trustless swaps with native BTC. The thing that was interesting was a lot of companies basically giving up or not having any business model outside of we're gonna sell debt, structured note or whatever, and then gonna add BTC, buy BTC and add it to our balance sheet. And we're gonna continue to issue these shares and dilute them. And the market accepting that as a phenomenal financial innovation really did surprise me.
Yeah, I think that's also been a huge surprise for us as well when we see all these projects come in. And Jake, I see that you're back. Great to have you again. We've go ahead if you want to still answer the question on BTC dominance. Go ahead, but we're also adding on now what has been the biggest surprise in the Bitcoin ecosystem the past year. So if you want to tackle that, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. What both of them were saying about Bitcoin dominance, I completely agree with. We've reached a level of dominance which really we haven't seen before. But I think in part it's also because, we're finally seeing people on television no longer saying that Bitcoin's going to zero. We have the biggest institutions in the world coming and buying Bitcoin. So it's absolutely epic to see. In terms of what has surprised me, I guess, over the past year is that we're starting to see not only governments starting to acquire Bitcoin, but we're also seeing companies starting to run that MicroStrategy playbook. Watching Metaplanet over the past year has been very interesting to see. And I think that we're going to continue to see a lot of companies begin to acquire Bitcoin reserves or use their capital to acquire Bitcoin in some way or another. Just yesterday we saw GameStop, GME, made an announcement that they're probably going to do something similar to MicroStrategy. So it's been a crazy year, and it's been great to see, and the momentum just keeps building. So yeah, it's awesome.
Jeroen, what's been surprising for you?
Well, I would say, definitely the ETF was a big surprise to begin with, but then even further than that, just the regulatory kind of change, more recently ever since the election victory of Donald Trump, right? I think, a lot has changed in terms of, how Bitcoin is perceived and kind of has gained in terms of, legitimacy, I think that's to me a big surprise. It's a good surprise, but didn't expect it to be that outspoken in a way. I thought it was going to be, more gradual and more kind of behind the scenes, and then kind of, yeah, sure, it's accepted, but now it seems to be especially in the US, it's okay, going all in on the Bitcoin side, obviously with some disclaimers. But that has obviously surprised me. And then I think another thing is one thing that maybe many people would have never thought possible, because Bitcoin is still known as a proof of work, network, right? Is the fact that now Bitcoin staking has gotten so popular. I'm not sure, how many of you guys have been following this, but, it has become quite popular with the launch of Babylon more recently. They've amassed quite a bit of Bitcoin to be staked, which, has been like earning points and rewards and whatever. And soon when Babylon launches their Genesis chain, there will be yield generated on Bitcoin, which is by staking is kind of a new tech that is out there. Obviously, yield on Bitcoin is not new. Like there have been financial products to generate some yield on Bitcoin, but now staking yield on Bitcoin, I think is quite surprising. I wouldn't have expected this, let's say 3-4 years ago, right? And I think it's a great innovation because this means DeFi becomes super interesting as well. And that's something, I'm super keen to see how this plays out.
Great, guys. Really interesting to hear all of your takes. And actually, I've also been very positively surprised by the Bitcoin ecosystem the past 2 years. It's definitely kept me on my toes. I'm super keen to see also, how it's going to develop further from a technical point of view, because obviously ETH has been quite dominant there. But Bitcoin is definitely catching up in terms of also the community. So it's been, we've talked a little bit more about the bigger picture, how Bitcoin dominance is coming about, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into all of your projects. And I'll start with Portal, with Chandra. So from a technical point of view, and also with what you are building specifically, what would you say was pretty much impossible to build 2, 3, 4 years ago, that has now really, become the backbone of what you're doing? And looking ahead, what is still really technically challenging for you guys?
That's a great question. So I wouldn't say anything in technology is impossible. It's a matter of time and the right ideas, being implemented at the right time. For us, we set out to do something that we thought was nearly impossible, right? Like when we first started talking about a trust minimized cross-chain exchange, the term DEX didn't exist then. And also we didn't really care about decentralization because it's a vague and nefarious term that is used as a smokescreen for all sorts of things. We said, decentralization is good if it's a layer 1 protocol like Bitcoin, but for cross-chain exchange, the axis of differentiation or like the fundamental value proposition should be trust minimization. It was really, really hard to do because there's essentially 3 approaches to doing it, right? One is, you can create a bridge, and then you can say my bridge is secured by X number of validators or Y form of zero knowledge rollup or whatever. But at the end of the day, security of a system devolves to its weakest link. The second way of doing it is cross-chain message passing, which is neither here nor there. The only other way to do completely trust minimized cross-chain exchange was using atomic swaps. And when we talked about atomic swaps, there were essentially 3 companies. There was Arvin, there was like Network, and there were us. It was incredibly hard to make it work and bring it to consumer grade, because atomic swaps can be done. They're just slow, they're expensive, and they give you a horrible, horrible user experience. But now with some innovations that came about, initially written about by Christian Decker and Waterhofer in 2017-2018 timeframe, off-chain scaling solutions, similar to Lightning, but improvements on the Lightning architecture, like channel factories, are the core backbone of what we're building. The architecture that we have is called Bitscaler. It's the first implementation of a channel factory, which essentially increases the efficiency and scalability of Lightning by up to 95-96%. That we could not have done if we started before 2018 or 2017, because the idea of a channel factor, how to do it, wasn't there. Just like, before Taj and Toon's Lightning Network paper came out around that same time. So that essentially is the backbone of what we're doing. Obviously, policy language, miniscript, Taproot, all of the improvements that happen enable what we're doing. And to the last point of your question about like what is nearly impossible still, that's a hard one to talk about, because we see real use cases in Unity being built on Bitcoin as the ultimate holy grail, right? We want Bitcoin block space to be the settlement layer for millions of markets, not just for BTC. How it actually evolves, what use cases will dominate is an open question, I would say.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot to be seen, right, in the upcoming months. Jeroen, I want to move over to persistence. By the way, Chandra, thank you for answering my question. It was a great answer. But moving on to persistence, Jeroen, you already talked a little bit about the product at the beginning in your introduction. But what we want to know is, so how is persistence promoting a greater ecosystem efficiency with your products?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, in a way, like our background is that we are a DEX, right? So we want people to be able to swap from one asset to another. And that currently happens already in the live version of our product, which is on the persistence chain, but that's relatively limited. So that's why we started to work also since last year actually on the Bitcoin side, where we wanted to do more, because we saw this upcoming, hype in a way about like all these Bitcoin layer 2 side chains that are now able to build on top of Bitcoin and kind of use the security of the Bitcoin network, which is there, and it would be kind of a waste to not use it. And basically what we noticed is that, people, I mean, if we want DeFi basically on all of these layer 2s to succeed, which I think we want to, right? We want the BTC DeFi ecosystem to be thriving and growing. And actually, I want it to become bigger than ETH DeFi. I do actually think it has the potential to become much bigger even than ETH DeFi, just because of the size of the network, the size of the asset, and especially once the asset can be used, with certain yield strategies. I actually do think it has a lot of opportunity to grow in terms of DeFi, way bigger than anything we've seen so far in DeFi, even in the DeFi summer. But so for that to happen, I mean, what we've realized, or what we saw with the upcoming L2s everywhere, is that, look, this is only possible when there is actually true interoperability between those chains. And we've seen that on Ethereum as well. Ethereum has done great, like a lot of innovation in DeFi, but people want to explore different ecosystems. They want to go around from one chain to another. They want to move from one asset, from one product, from one DeFi application to another without too much trouble. And you can see that in like all these bridging volumes that we've seen. But it was mentioned earlier as well, like bridges are not that secure, right? Bridges have been prone to hacks. There's a lot of issues with bridges. Typically the ones that are like lock and burn mechanisms, are quite, or lock and mint mechanisms are quite like a honeypot in a way for hackers to attack. And so we wanted to avoid building another bridge for the Bitcoin ecosystem. I mean, to us, it didn't really make sense to try and build a bridge to connect and kind of foresee interoperability between the Bitcoin, ecosystem participants in a way. So what we wanted to do is facilitate that liquidity, that velocity of BTC transfer basically throughout the DeFi ecosystem that we're building, but doing this in a way that it's secure and fast and cheap in a way, right? And so that's when we started to look more and more into Intense. I'm super bullish on Intense in general. They're I think they're becoming more and more familiar and more utilized everywhere. But basically what an intent does, it's kind of just, it tries to solve for a specific problem that is raised, but it doesn't care how it is solved. It just basically lets someone solve the problem for you. And basically what happens with that is you are able to abstract away all the complexity for a transaction. So I'll explain with an example, right? So let's say there's two Bitcoin L2s. Let's call one, for example, BitLayer. The other one could be, let's say Merlin, right? And so BitLayer has their form of BTC. Merlin has their form of BTC. They're called like BBTC and MBTC. And there's actually tons of BTCs by now. You can check this, but there's like 50 or 60 forms of BTC by now. And that's not even including like the LST versions of BTC, which is super confusing for a user, right? A user just thinks it's BTC on this chain, it should be BTC everywhere. But obviously it comes with different trust assumptions. Anyway, so what we were thinking is like, look, if I have BitLayer on BitLayer, BTC, I want to now have MBTC on Merlin chain. I want to be able to switch from one to another, like in a second, right? And basically how we do that, instead of trying to actually bridge it, and actually try to find a way to like bridge this asset and kind of go through the Bitcoin main chain to bring it back to, or bring it to the destination chain. What we do is actually we just find a counterparty on the other chain who has the asset that you want to swap into, and you basically just exchange it. So it's like a cross-chain swap. I think it's very similar to atomic swaps in a way. It's like, we call it intent-based swaps, where literally you're just swapping from one asset to another with someone who already has the asset on the other chain, and he will take your asset on the original chain. And so in a way it solves a lot of the problems that we have currently with bridges. First of all, it kind of keeps the native assets on the native chains. And in a way, I do think it also is a great kind of marker for how risky all of these assets are. And like it was mentioned earlier by Chandra, like every different chains, like on every different bridge has its own risk assumptions. And what I think with this structure that we're bringing, it's actually we're going to be able to price the risk of these assets. So basically MBTC might not be equivalent in price to SBTC or BBTC or BTCB or anything. Like all of these forms of BTC might have their own price, which will be slightly different from BTC. And I think BTC will be the strongest asset, of course, should be the pricing wise the highest. And then all the other assets should be priced accordingly to the risk, as long as they're bridged with certain form of risk. But so what we're doing is like we're really trying to become that liquidity hub in a way where liquidity flows very seamlessly from one point to another, by always finding that counterparty on the other side. And those counterparties are typically like professional market makers who have connections on the different exchanges, on the different chains, to make sure that they can always fulfill your trade very quickly, and to basically be able to balance out any of their imbalances at any point of time, so they can do the actual unwrapping. So you as a user, you don't have to worry about it. So basically, it's kind of swapping from one chain to another within, I would say, 30 seconds. Any type of swap would be possible. So that's kind of the problem we're solving.
Great. Thanks, Jeroen. And I think this is a perfect segue to what I wanted to ask you, Jake, which was a little bit more about the usability of the of Bitcoin products, and also how the UX has become easier, and how Nexio is actually also doing this. So the question is, do you think that Bitcoin has become easier to use in 2025 compared to years ago? And also, how has the onboarding and UX compared to other chains? And what are you guys at Nexio doing about that?
Absolutely. So in terms of the overall experience and using of Bitcoin and all the various applications we've seen being built, back a year or 2 years ago, basically, when I first minted my first ordinal, I was using a Sparrow wallet. And for those not familiar with that, it's one of the original Bitcoin wallets. It's very hard to use. And we did not have the quote unquote MetaMask or Phantom experience. There was no Xverse, there was no Unisat. So it was very difficult for people to get involved within the ecosystem. However, once we got Unisat and Xverse and we saw people like Magic Eden come into the scene, it allowed for easier trading of these assets. I mean, my first ordinal, I used the Sparrow wallet and then sold it in a spreadsheet in the DGods Discord. So we've definitely come a long way since then. However, we still have a lot of work to do. I mean, when you compare to chains like Ethereum or Solana, we don't have like the use of Privy, and we don't have the use of a lot of middleware infrastructure that a lot of developers are familiar with. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to partner with all of the teams that developers are already familiar with, all the different wallet providers, oracles, indexers, because we need developers to be able to want to take the leap and start building in Bitcoin and start building applications where overall you might end up every day with more Bitcoin. But in order to get to that point, we do need to make sure that developers have all the tools. So we've come a long way. We're definitely not there yet, and it is going to take a little bit of time, but we're getting there, and the growth has been very exciting to see. And Bitcoin, like it was previously said by one of the other speakers, I do completely agree. Bitcoin DeFi, there's a very good chance that it becomes bigger than Ethereum, but we do need to have applications where people can get all these different yields mechanism. We do need all the various different trading strategies to be run on Bitcoin. And when we start getting more developers and applications being built, we'll be able to potentially get to that point where Bitcoin has Bitcoin DeFi has more volume than Ethereum and any other DeFi.
Amazing, guys, for going a little bit deeper into all of your projects. Excuse me, I'm just recovering from a cold. If you hear any coughs, I just wanted to remind the audience as well that if you have any questions, I'm about to get into my second to last question. So for those who are interested in anything on any three of the projects today, please feel free to add your question in the comment section so that we can get to it still in the next couple of minutes. But before you do, I have one more question for you guys before we go into some alphas. And that is, I want to do a fill in the blank exercise with you. So the fill in the blank is, by the end of 2025, Bitcoin will ... So you guys have to finish the sentence and then tell me why you think this is going to happen. Jake, why don't you go first? So by the end of 2025, Bitcoin will...
Bitcoin's going to have more countries trying to figure out how they're going to acquire Bitcoin. We might not necessarily get to the point where they put bills forward and actually start making those Bitcoin purchases, but we're going to see a ton of discussion around the topic of how do we create these Bitcoin strategic reserves. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot of companies as well start acquiring Bitcoin and putting actions forward to get a Bitcoin stockpile. I mean, just yesterday, like I said earlier, we saw the GMA thing. I wasn't expecting that. So it's going to be a very interesting year and interesting years to come.
Nice. Jeroen, what do you think? What, by the end of 2025, Bitcoin will?
There's so many options for this. I mean, I was also going to say we'll be on a lot of balance sheets, I think, across the world, and even I would say on different funds and like in insurance companies. Maybe that's too early, 2025, but yeah, I think we'll have like massive adoption. I think institutional like adoption, and that would be on like my institutional angle or like finance angle. Think to fill in the blank from more of a tech angle, I would say by the end of 2025, Bitcoin will see a lot of staked Bitcoin, a lot of yield use cases. We'll see a lot of layer 2s. We'll see a lot of chains and apps using the security of Bitcoin. I mean, hopefully by the end of 2025, Bitcoin will have a lot more people that are following it closely and taking it seriously and know that it's, it's something that will continue to grow and kind of change lives and just the world that we live in.
Nice. Chandra, what about you? What is your answer?
By the end of 2025, Bitcoin will continue to be exactly the same as it is today. Not in terms of price, not in terms of adoption, but the protocol will stay exactly the way it is today. That's the value of the
Bold
protocol.
statement. I'm surprised none of you guys said a price prediction. I thought someone was going to put in a crazy price prediction, but I like that you all focused more on the utility of it versus just what the price of Bitcoin is going to be. Guys, it's been really great talking to all three of you about the dominance of Bitcoin in the past years and also what it's going to look like in the next year. Before we close off the session, I want to give you guys some space to also tell us about any alphas or launches that the community can expect in the next couple of weeks or months. Is there anything you can already share with us? Jeroen?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you asked, because I do have, some alpha here that has not been shared, not even on our, main account. It's going to go out probably on Monday. We'll do a big campaign about it. But so, the alpha for the news is that we will, deploy our persistence decks on Babylon chain. Babylon chain, I've spoke about them earlier, is becoming a big centerpiece in the entire BTC Fi ecosystem, and our DEX, which has been built and optimized actually to work with liquid staked assets and assets that are closely pegged to each other. We'll have an outpost there on Babylon and allow trading of BTC, the asset, obviously, Babi, the token, but also a lot of the LSTs that are going to be flowing onto Babylon. So that's one piece of alpha that will be announced on Monday, but happy to give the first take here on this space for the attentive listener. And then the second piece of alpha is that we're going to launch our interoperability product or intent-based bridge. Actually, the contracts will be deployed on mainnet tomorrow, but that will be for internal mainnet testing. The actual public launch will be slightly later in April. But those are the main upcoming events from our side.
Well, thanks for sharing it here. We're honored. It's always great to get some alpha out yet. Jake, what about you? What's going on?
For us, we're currently working on natively integrating a DeFi protocol into the base layer of Nexio. So won't be sharing so much on this, but we will have some good information on this soon and a paper being released on it. So very excited about that. Overall, just very excited about what's to come over the next few months. We're going to have a lot of fun stuff going on.
Great. And we can see that all on your X profile, the announcements coming up in the paper.
Absolutely.
Great. So everyone make sure to keep an eye on that, and obviously also on the Persistence X profile. And last but definitely not least, Chandra, what about some announcements coming from Portal?
Thank you very much for asking that question. So next week we're going to have our testnet V2, which will demonstrate two unprecedented things in this space. We're going to showcase native swaps that between chains that people have tried to do for a long time but haven't been able to do. Now you can do them just like you do on a centralized exchange. Two is you're going to see the real merger of AI agentic investment strategies and tools merged with the best cross-chain infrastructure out there. So you heard it here first. Thank you to Morningstar for hosting this. You guys will see a lot more information on our Twitter. Join our Discord. There's actually a light note giveaway, and so I kind of let you guys in on the secret. But you can go to nodes.pool.com or join our Discord, and get in before other people. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, of course. Thank you. I'm just going to close off and say that everyone here should follow all three projects and also make sure to keep up on their respective Discord channels and check out their websites and keep an eye out for all the announcements. From the Morningstar Ventures side, we also just wanted to share a big announcement from one of our flagship portfolio companies, which is Gunzilla Games. And in fact, that anyone who's a fan of the AAA shooter Play Off the Grid or Gunzilla Games or knows about the Gunz Layer 1. So Binance has just announced that the Gunz project is going to be the next on the Binance launch pool, and it's actually going to start tonight. And another big announcement is that with this, the Gun token is going to get officially listed on Binance next week on March 31st. So this is a very exciting development for us today. And I also wanted to share it with all of you, for any of you that are fans of the project or know our ecosystem well. So with that being said, I wanted to say once again, thank you so much, Jake, Chandra, and Jeroen for coming on the space and talking to me about, Bitcoin. It's always great to talk about it. And I'm really looking forward to pushing out the recording of this so that more people can hear it. And until then, I will see you guys next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Have a
Thanks,
great day.
everybody.
Bye.